I see the meeting's 11 o'clock, so we'll convene this November meeting of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board here in Sacramento, California. We are now in open session. The board will accept public comment on any agenda item or any other matter under its jurisdiction. Speakers are asked to limit their testimony to approximately 5 minutes on each agenda item and only on any other matter under its jurisdiction not listed on the agenda. The order of agenda items may be changed to accommodate the board or the public. So having opened the session, we'll do the roll call. Michael Allen, Chair, present.
Laura Kent-Monning, Vice Chair, present.
Michael Ng, member, present.
Robert Wachowski here.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. That meeting was chaired by our Vice Chair, Kent-Monning, Laura Kent-Monning. So I will abstain from this voting, but I will call for the roll call. I abstain. Member Kent-Monning?
I vote to approve.
I make the motion and I vote to approve.
Great.
I approve.
Okay. So we have approved the minutes of the October board meeting. I would ask now, before I move on, I'll make a very brief report. I was on vacation. I won't go into any details other than to mention that I heard that the board meeting was very efficient last month and that all the silverware is still intact and that we're functioning well as an agency. And I do count my blessings that I work with a very strong board and a very capable vice chair. And for that, I'm very appreciative, very appreciative. So the only other thing I would just share with the board is that when I did return, I had a very long, very nice conversation with Jefferson Willoughby, who is leaving our agency for another position, I believe, with the state, just really giving him my most heartfelt thanks for the wonderful job he's done and with his staff, and really just wishing him the very best in his future endeavors. So I did do that upon my return. And also just noting that we have major challenges ahead of us, as we always do, with the new cases will be coming, the new type of cases will be coming in, and us being able to continue to reduce the caseload over time. So with that, and of course, always expressing my appreciation for all levels of the organization who do their job well and do it with care. For the business of the public, and they do it with a I would say with both a sense of justice and compassion. So that concludes my report, and I would basically leave it to my board members for their reports.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Just briefly this month, I wanted to echo your sentiments about outgoing CIO Jefferson Willoughby, and just wanted to thank him for everything he has done for our agency during his time here. And wishing him the best of luck in his next chapter. And also wanted to thank Mark Smith for presenting today. We appreciate you filling in. And then I wanted to welcome Judges Thornton and Sanders to permanent positions at the appellate office. We are very excited to have their continued great work, and it's a pleasure to work with them in the cases we do. So wanted to welcome them. That's all.
Thank you. Member Ng.
Thank you, Chair Allen. First of all, I wanted to thank Vice Chair Kent-Monning for filling in during your well-deserved absence, and she did an admirable job, not just at the meeting, but also in between taking and fielding the business that you normally have. Also an appreciation for Chief Willoughby. I came in when CAMS was starting, and I really appreciate all the changes that he took us through, his openness to suggestions, and his willingness to answer questions. So an appreciation. I don't know if it's going to get to him, but an appreciation nevertheless. Thank you.
Member Wachowski.
Yes, I'd like to report that all state employees are required to complete an ethics training, and I have completed mine, as well as a cyber attack. A cyber attack refresher on how our agency may be attacked by, or always on constant threat. And I would join the chorus of accolades to Chief Willoughby. When I came on, last year in January, the backlog was 147,000 cases, and now we're around 42,000 cases. And some of my colleagues have asked me, am I to be credited for that workload reduction? And I answered, of course, that I have single-handedly, but I think the accolades should go to the tech staff and to the leadership of the whole agency, but particularly the changes on the technology in these last 24 months. That's my report.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'd ask, do we have any public comment?
We currently have no hands raised for public comment.
Okay. With no public comment, then we'll proceed to the report of Judge Kutry, an update on the state of the agency and field workload.
Good morning, Chair Allen and board members. I'll start with some of the timeliness metrics that we follow each month, and then discuss some of the some of the operational challenges that the field encountered since our last meeting. In October, the average daily appeal intake from EDD continued to be largely static, as I've been thankfully reporting for the last year. Very close to incoming appeal levels of 2019 and 2020. And so that allows us to continue to chip away at that once historic backlog. We resolved another 5,500 cases towards resolving that backlog. The field offices issued over 26,000 decisions in October, a really high amount. Our total inventory is now down to just over 61,000 cases, of which just over 42,000 are in the UI and PUA programs. As was mentioned by Member Wykowski, we had over 146,000 UI and PUA appeals in our inventory at the beginning of 2023, so a really drastic reduction. The case age dropped again by 7 days, from 68 to 61 days. So that's a testament to those efforts of the field offices by getting the oldest cases out first. The national case average is still 192 days, very high compared to our progress. We have started to schedule our 2025 meetings with the U.S. Department of Labor and EDD to talk about those backlogs and our ultimate recovery. They are still supportive of our efforts towards resolving cases first in, first out based on age. And we've had some talks about what that might look like when that starts to shift as that number comes down to normal, in the 20 to 30 day range. We still have a very healthy amount of ALJs that are working despite some recent attrition. By my very rough count, we've lost approximately 28 ALJs since last December, so about 1 year period. And we're at that time when some folks will separate, largely due to retirement. So we'll keep the board posted on those staffing levels as well as we come into the new year. We had a couple of office closures since the last meeting. It's fire season in California, as we all know. And so we had the San Diego office was evacuated on October 31st, and we had to close the Oxnard office on November 6th, a week later, both for nearby fires. Both reopened the next day. There were very minimal disruptions to services, thanks to the other offices chipping in and assisting serving the public during their brief closures. I'd like to also thank Mr. Willoughby, our CIO, for the past 5+ years. We started the CAMS project before the pandemic hit, and the executive team met when those two events coincided, and we decided that we would push ahead on CAMS because it presented some real generational opportunities for growth for the agency. And so I thank him for so capably navigating the many speed bumps that we encountered during that process when faced with both of those events. Mark Smith is here today to report on behalf of IT, and I thank him for carrying that torch while we search for a replacement. Mark Smith's team, of course, has been instrumental in that CAMS development, so I think it's appropriate that he can give us a couple updates on what that looks like today. I don't have any security events to report, so that concludes this month's report, and I'm welcome to take any questions that you have.
Does any of the board members have questions? Yes?
Yeah, I noticed that the pandemic cases are down to about 1% at the field and 3% of the appellate operation. And then calling to mind Jefferson Willoughby's tenure here, I recall that it will be 5 years since the pandemic actually was started in January of 2020. And then, of course, it took a little while for us to build the law out on benefits. I, for one, and this is just a suggestion, not a motion, would really appreciate a summary of what we have done. I think that it's one of those defining moments that we'll look back 10 years from now and say, just as Mr. Chair, you look back during a time when you did 100 cases a day, and that was considered normal. But for the pandemic, that was, I was trained on that. There were extra trainings for that, Judge Bach, as you know, and the entire AO was mobilized to train folks and the field judges. And I'd like to know how many cases we did, what kind of training, how many hours of training it took, and I believe it was a time of great accomplishment, and I'm not asking for it now, but the anniversary, I think, will be coming up next year in January or February as far as when we started our benefit program. I would like to just see a retrospect on that, because, if we don't tell people what we did, sometimes the assumption is that nothing was done.
Which
And I
couldn't be
for
further
one-
from the truth. As we
for one
close the
ta-
fourth year of the pandemic era and enter the fifth,
Yeah,
I'd
thank
be
you.
happy to report
I
on
take
that.
great pride in knowing what this body has done from the board and everyone else. Thank you. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Member Ring. Good suggestions. Any other comments? One thing, before we move on the agenda, usually when we do the board report and I give my report, we talk about the number of cases that this board closes, and we closed 752 cases this past month, and of those, 711 were done under CAMS, and 41 were done under the Legacy program. So I neglected to do that under my report, so I just wanted to make sure we get that into the record before we move on to Rebecca Bach, who is our supervising administrative law judge, and she's going to tell us about the state of the appellate workload. So Rebecca, thank you very much, and take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. I actually do have a really good report to share with you, but before I begin my report, I want to share some very sad news. It is with a heavy heart that we announce the passing of our colleague, Sine Franklin, who unfortunately passed away on November 2nd, 2024. She had been a valued member of CUIAB for over 20 years, starting at CUIAB in 2002 at the San Francisco office, and then she transferred to the Oakland office in 2007, the San Jose office in 2010, and finally appellate operations in 2013, where she has worked ever since. She primarily worked as a MST, which is a management services technician, doing difficult work in registration and doing a very good job at it. She has vast work experience at CUIAB and a wealth of knowledge, and she really was just a smart, friendly person, and we're going to really miss her. Okay, sorry. So anyways, our thoughts are with her family during this time. I'm sorry, I didn't think I would do that.
No, it's okay. It's
Okay.
It's very understandable. Take your time.
Okay, thank you. So moving to the report, for appellate operations in the board and the work we've done in the month of October to meet Department of Labor guidelines. We are supposed to close 50% of our cases within 45 days to meet the timeline goals, and we closed 84.3% of our cases within 45 days, bringing our year total to 73.1. We're supposed to close 80% of our cases within 75 days for Department of Labor guidelines, and we closed 96.6% of our cases within 75 days, bringing our year total to 94.5. So we are well above the Department of Labor guidelines when it comes to time lapse. The other number the Department of Labor watches is case aging. And to meet their case aging requirements, we're supposed to have a case aging of 40 days or less, the last day of October 2024, our case aging was 27.6, so well under on that number. So our numbers are really good, and we continue to move on. And I think the recent transfer of the two judges that Vice Chair Kent Monning mentioned will help us move forward, being able to meet the Department of Labor goals. I want to briefly welcome Mark to the board meeting here, and just in case you didn't know, because you might not know, but we've had a really hands-on assistance from him at appellate operations in order to meet our CAMS needs, and so it is such a pleasure. And then just any questions. Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm sorry.
No questions, but I do know that I made some inquiries about did we ever do everything possible to help the family, and the answer was in the affirmative. I know the state has certain things they do in our agency, and so it's always sad when we have a passing of a colleague, and so the emotion it's very understandable, very understandable. At this point, I think the best thing is to move on to the rest of the agenda, which is to ask for a report from Mark. Are you going to be giving the report today, Mark Smith? So,
Certainly.
Why don't you go ahead and give the report on our update on the Information Technology Branch?
Thank you. Good morning, Board. First, I'd like to touch on hiring. We are refilling two positions, one in information security and one in application development. We're at the stage where we are evaluating applicants with an eye towards interviews. So that's moving along nicely. In terms of CAMS, we are preparing the next release of software that was created during our recent contracted vendor engagement. So we are on group 3 of 5. There's this is enhancement to existing functions where it's improving our most of it's improving security controls types of things within the application. Thirdly, I did want to touch on, because I know it's important to this group, in terms of languages that we're presenting on the portal, I don't really have an advancement in that realm to update, but I did want to let you know that the Chinese print language on the portal is our next thing that we're embracing and moving forward, and the department has identified the next couple of languages to follow in after that. So those continue to move forward. And I think that summarizes it.
I'd ask the board members any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
The only comment I'd make is that with the holidays, I did have a brief discussion with the executive director about having the longest possible period open to us for recruitment, so that we make sure we get sufficient applicants so that we can move forward to find the next IT director. But I have every confidence that we'll find someone very good, either in-house or with other agencies. So with that, we'll move on to Robert Silva, an update on administrative services.
Good morning. Thank you. I'll start with a hiring report. I reported a few meetings back that the CUIAB's field and appellate staffing has been aligning with the decreasing backlog, and that the recruitment efforts have transitioned from ramping up to basically just addressing backfilling separations and promotions as they occur. Since the September board meeting, there have been no support staff hires at CUIAB. And also during that 60-day period, we've only had attrition of 3 staff in 3 different field offices. We do currently have 15 pending support staff recruitments over 8 offices and 4 different classifications. 4 of those recruitments are for seasonal clerks, so it's yet another indicator of them really just needing people to come in to provide temporary support to address any upward blips in workload that occur in the near future. Quick budget planning update. This is the time of year when we submit to EDD Fiscal Programs Division our Schedule 9 call letter requests, and those are for capitalized equipment needs, which is equipment over $5,000 in cost, as well as contract needs for the 2025-26 state fiscal year. Our submission gets rolled up into EDD's eventual submission to the Department of Finance for incorporation into the 25-26 budget. I worked with IT last week. Our due date to submit it is today, and it's already been submitted. Quick procurement update with the board's adoption of the current 24-25 budget. In September, we begun the various procurement processes for the approved operating expenses and equipment items in our budget. Our IT procurement team, as well as the admin procurement team, have been provided with purchase lists of equipment, furniture, contracts, and all branches of CUIB were provided with their respective monthly and annual supply budgets. And they've been purchasing them since the adoption of the budget. Lastly, language update. As the board is aware, November is one of the months in which CUIB engages in our biannual audit for employees receiving bilingual pay. This month, we have 42 of our employees completing time ladders to ensure they continue to serve the public utilizing their bilingual skills to qualify for that pay differential. The data collected this month will be averaged with the data that will be collected in May of 2025 to make the determination for the continuity of bilingual pay as we enter state fiscal year 25-26. And that is my report. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. I'd ask board members, are there any questions? Okay. Well, hearing then, with no questions, I'll move the agenda and I'll turn to our board counsel and ask whether there is any business to be conducted today in closed session.
Thank you, Chair Allen. There is no closed session.
Hearing that there's no business to be conducted in closed session, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.